Hi, I'm Jennifer McGuire. I'm a guest teacher over at twopeasinAbucket.com for Holiday Thinking Inking. This week I'm going to focus on different surfaces for stamping, in particular sticky back canvas, acetate or transparency, and glossy paper. First I'm going to start with sticky back canvas and show you how you can create some fun pieces with it, including this little pin here. I'll do the pin and then I'll do the card. This is sticky back canvas. It's just canvas with a sticky back. It comes in white and natural. And I like to put little cuts in the side to tear it, and that way it does a nice fray and it always tears straight. And I'm actually going to be using torn strips of the sticky back canvas for these projects. So I have a punch circle here. I've covered it entirely with some dry adhesive, and I'm starting with one end of the sticky back canvas, sticky side down, onto that adhesive circle, and I'm starting to roll my sticky back with the sticky part inside. So the canvas is on the outside, and I'm going to start rolling it and spiraling it around this circle. And since there's adhesive on the circle, it's keeping it put, and you can go back and add more pieces if you need it. If you want a bigger flower, you can use less. If you want a smaller flower, it's really up to you. You could paint this sticky back canvas first or stamp on it, whatever you want, but I started with white. So now I just take this end here and I'm going to fold it back to the back and trim it off, and there I'm good to go. And you could do all kinds of fun things with this. You can make necklaces. I'm going to put a little pin on the back of this and make it a brooch to give to my mom. Now, to make sure this stays put, I'm going to go with some glossy accents and squirt little dabs of it into the crevices here and there, just to make sure that it doesn't come undone, especially since this is something that somebody will be wearing and bumping and such. Now to color it, I decided to take my ink blending tool and some Barn Door Red Distress ink and ink it up just by pressing it. And now I have a mini mister with water and a little scoop of Perfect Pearls. I'll be talking about those next week in this class. And I'm going to spray this pretty good so that it starts to blend and all that white area in the crevices gets kind of disappears. So I'm going to spray this lots. It'll have some shine, and I'll heat it with a heat gun to dry it. Now I'm going back with Fired Brick Red, which is a darker red, and just inking the edges just to give it some dimension. Very simple. I colored some pearls with a permanent marker and added some glossy accents to the center of my flower, and now I'm putting the pearls on there. And I'm doing this on the acrylic block so I don't cut on my craft sheet. So here's the final thing. I added some felt leaves too. Here's a card using somewhat the same technique to create this canvas tree. I just cut a triangle from some cardstock and covered it with some adhesive as I did with the circle. Now I'm rolling the sticky back canvas again with the sticky part in the inside and just pressing it down on the triangle, going back and forth until I cover the whole triangle. Again, I could have painted this first with any kind of acrylic paint or inked it first or stamped it first, but I again wanted to have that layering look, and so I'm inking it afterwards. And for this one, I'm going to use peeled paint distress ink, and then I'll spray it the same way with the pearlized water as I did earlier and let it dry. You can also die cut your sticky back canvas. I used a Tim Holtz Sizzix die for this. It die cuts beautifully. And I'm just sticking it right on my craft sheet. The stick will stay. It'll still work just fine. And I have this Claudine Helmuth Studio paint. This is just a buttery paint. I like to use my fingers with it, and you can see how beautiful it is. You could use any acrylic paint here. I really like these when I'm doing actual painting as opposed to stamping, because it's just goes on beautifully. So I'm painting this whole piece. I can peel it right off, and I'm going to zap it with my heat gun so it dries. Now I wanted to do a little bit something to this to kind of give it a little holiday feel. So I'm stamping with some chipped sapphire distress ink, some Hero Art snowflakes, and now while it's still wet, I'm going to take my ink blending tool very lightly, and I'm going to smear it a bit so that it kind of has a more toned down look and it's not as harsh, because this is just a little background element. So you can see how it really makes it nice and soft, and now I'll zap it with the heat gun. For the background of the card, I'm using this Color Box Frost White ink. This is the best white ink on craft. So I'm inking up this Hero Art stamp, and I'll lay my Hero Arts craft note card on it, and you'll see how powerful that is on there. And I'll zap that with a heat gun too. So there's the finished card and pin, showing you some things to do with sticky back canvas. The next surface I wanted to talk to you about is acetate and transparency. I'm not actually stamping here on this acetate. I'm going to show you something else fun to do with it. And here is the final card. I will do a little stamping on the acetate. But first I wanted to show you I used this Sizzix embossing folder. I just took a clear card from Hero Arts, put it in here, ran it through my Big Shot, and I end up with this nice embossed front to my acetate card. Now to show you how I did that, this is a platform that I highly recommend. It's a multi-purpose platform from Sizzix, and using this with your Big Shot, you can emboss and cut with any brand of dies, spellbinders, anything. So by having this tab, I can take one of the Sizzix plates, my embossing folder, I put my paper or acetate in there, put the other plate on top and run it through my machine, and it's good to go. And it tells you on this multi-purpose platform which shims to use on what, and it all stays right there. I love it. And this is a rosette die cut from Tim Holtz and Sizzix. It cuts this long strip and it'll make this great rosette flower. It's so easy to do. I'm just cut this piece with some basic gray paper in that die cut, and I'm going to do this accordion fold. And I'm going to tape the two ends together so you end up with a cylinder. And you just carefully press it down and it'll pop into place. And then I'll take the little circle that it also die cuts and glue it onto the top to hold it. Then I'll do a little bit of inking with some vintage photo distress ink just to kind of soften it. And there's my final little flower. Now to make sure it doesn't unfold, I'm just squeezing some glossy accent down the center, and that will stay put forever. And you can see that I've just put this on top just so that it has a firm, it stays put. Sorry, my dog is joining me here. And I have some basic gray papers I've glued to the front of the card, and I'm going to add some basic gray buttons. I love these because they match the papers. And there's more than one of each size, so I could easily do matching buttons on each side of this rosette. Now here I'm just glue dotted my buttons down, but I'm going back with some glossy accents to squeeze under it, because that way I know they won't pop off when I run this through the mail. Now I have this Hero Arts snowflake again, and I cut a piece out from an acetate note card from Hero Arts. I'm using Ranger Archival Black ink, which is a permanent ink, and it will dry on the acetate. It takes some time, but it'll do it. And the key to stamping on acetate is just have a steady hand. So this will go right on top of the rosette here. So I just cut it out and I added it with a dotted glossy accent. Now with clear cards, you need somewhere to write on the inside. So I have this green piece of basic gray that I've inked. And I'm going to make it so that it looks like a mat when the card is closed. So it's a mat for that front piece. So I'm holding it to the back of the front panel of the card and then closing it down and pressing it, and it'll actually glue to the inside of the card, giving me a place to write my message. Now the only problem with this is the back of both of these flaps of cards, you can see the adhesive through. So what I'm going to do is take a piece of cardstock of the just slightly smaller width and gluing it to the back of the card, so that it's totally just to hide the adhesive. And then it also gives me a spot where I could write "Made by" on the back by Jennifer. So you can see how that starts to come together, and then we need something here on the inside of the front flap. So I'm putting a piece of paper there too, just using plain white cardstock here, but you could use pattern paper too. And now all of the backs are covered from showing the adhesive, and I have a place to write my message. So this is just something fun that you can do, stamping on acetate and embossing, dry embossing on acetate. Next, I wanted to show you some glossy paper. Glossy paper is great for doing a resist technique, and actually here I'm going to show you a double layered resist. And I did that on the bottom of the card here. My favorite glossy paper is from Ranger, and for this you need any kind of embossing ink. I'm using Distress Ink embossing ink, and I'm just inking up my stamp, laying the glossy side down onto the stamp, and heat setting it. You don't need to emboss with this, even though you're using embossing ink. You're really just using a sticky ink. You're going to heat set that very, very well so that you can be sure it's dry. Now I'm taking my Broken China Distress Ink. You could also use chalk inks for this technique, and just rubbing right over the surface directly to the paper and buffing it dry. And you can see where we stamped with that embossing ink, it's actually resisted it. Now I heat set this again very well. All of the blue is heat set very well. Now I'm stamping again with embossing ink with the snowflake on top of it, and you can kind of see it here. I'm going to do this a few times and then heat set very, very well. I mean, it's got to be very dry. And now I'm going to rub on several layers of a darker blue Chip Sapphire Distress Ink. And I'm going to put on tons and tons and buff in between each application so that I can really make the snowflake pop. Each time I do it, it pops even more. So you'll see here that I just glued that to the bottom of the card, and I'm adding a stamped snowflake, and these are diamond gemstones from Hero Arts, which are kind of like little prisms that catch different colors, so they work on any card. And there you can see the double layered resist. Thanks for watching another video, and if you have questions, visit 2peasinabucket.com.